renowned children's classics, also summons as realistic fiction. Extremely controversial since it has been published. Commencement of commentary on society through literature. A book written about 300 years back. In short, this is Gulliver Travels. Written by a political satirist, Irish clergyman, and an ultimate human hater, John Swift. When we talk about John Swift, there comes a series of questions. How did his work shape the philosophy of today? How has his satire paved a way into this modern era? And why this Gulliver Travels never been out of print since it has been published? We all knew a Gulliver from Gulliver Travels who took voyages to strangest islands in this world, like from a land of Pigmies, who is of 6 inch size of human. From there, he somehow managed to escape from that country with the help of their enemy country to another island of giants, which is really magnified versions of human beings. He got exhausted with their size and he managed to discover another island, that is the island floating in the air. And he ends up in another island which is really special in this book. An island where we can see talking horses. The country is ruled by a talking horses and the men and the people out there obeys them. But I'm not here to explain those fantastical voyages which we have heard since our school days. But what is beyond that? Or what John Swift trying to say through those 4 fantasies? In 1726, when John Swift wrote this book for English readers, on the surface it appears just like a travelogue to chronicle the adventures of a man called Lemuel Gulliver. But primarily, it was an allegorical satire. A satire which is not in just one direction, but in multiple directions. Satire on politics, satire on scientific discoveries, and of course, satire on human nature. What he satirizes in this book? He satirizes 18th century England colonization, 18th century culture, of course, the education system of 18th century. And how did he satirize all this into those fantasies? He just compared the empires he visited, the politics, the government, or the laws out there with his own England society. Like in the movie Nandanam and Pranjit and the Swain, where a director brought an imaginary god into these films just to direct the characters in these movies the way he intended to or the way he wanted to. In this way, the protagonist Gulliver was just a tool for satire in the entire novel. When we read that, we can understand that the protagonist or the character is not developed or it doesn't even have emotions. I would like to cite an example of satire from this book. It is like this. There are some laws and customs in this empire very peculiar, and if they were not so directly contrary to those of my own dear country, I should be tempted to say a little in their justification. It directly says that he criticized some shortcomings of England crimes, some shortcomings of England education. He criticized the England education during 18th century. So, before criticizing England education, let's take a peek into our education system. What is happening to us? Rushing up in the morning to the classrooms, filling up us with lectures and notes, and spilling all those in just one day. That is exams. What do we got from this? What Swift called humans as I said, he was the ultimate human hater. He called us the most pernicious race of little cohesive vermin that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth. Now, let's take a travel once again to all those 4 voyages. First voyage begins with voyages to Lilliput. As I mentioned earlier, they are very small, of 6 inch size. The country Lilliput was divided into two, Lilliput and Blefuscu, on the name of an egg. On the name of an egg, Lilliput says to cut on the right and Blefuscu says to cut on left. That is the matter behind dividing that country and having a war and conflict in between them. If you look at them, it seems like a really trivial, right? Let's look into ourselves. On what matters do we use it to fight? Is that a serious matter? On what matters some religion splits, some parties split, or is our recent issue on the name of a food we eat, on the name of a meat we eat, which is food for life for one section of people and God for one section of people. I just want to point out this. We are fighting on some trivial matters and having wars and conflicts. Next, move on to the voyage to Brobdingnag. As I mentioned earlier, we can see the giants. Giants, which for us is the magnified versions of human beings. He got really exhausted by their size. So what he tried to satirize from voyage to Lilliput and Brobdingnag, which is exactly opposite sizes. One is the magnified version, but Brobdingnag giants was really kind, not like Lilliput's people who fight on trivial matters. By this, he wanted to satirize us, the social nature of human beings, our nature of deliberate judgment of a person only by looks, not by his action, neither by his soul. Then let's move on to another third voyage. He took third voyage to multiple lands. Voyage to Laputa, Balnibarbi, Leknag, Glubdubdrib, and Japan. In Laputa, that was I pointed out the earlier one, Laputa was a floating island he have visited. Floating island have a speciality that people out there was really obsessed with music and mathematics. The obsession in the level that no one reaches their level, they just drop them. They just drop from that island to the down islands. That is Balnibarbi, Leknag, Glubdubdrib, and Japan. And Gulliver was dropped down from that island. The obsession in the level that they can't afford anyone else in that empire than of their kind. What is the case of ours? Do we have that? Do we also have the same nature? Take the case of our refugees in our all countries, who is really suffering brutally, hardly in the borders of our countries. We have to think about all those matters, like Gulliver wanted to think of. The last one, which is the most important one in this book, Voyage to Houyhnhnms. All those voyages was you can see the misogynistic attitude of Swift. But the last one is the peak attitude, misogynistic attitude of Gulliver. He called the Houyhnhnms is the talking horses, and the Yahoos, the men out there, is the Yahoos. He called Yahoos as unteachable brutes, which is unhygienic, unkind, and really, really not looking good. And the horses, talking horses as the most kind, the most encouraging, the most kindest persons they have. Persons means living means he have ever seen, which make him to took the decision. I want to live hereafter. This is all about. Here Swift created an ideal world of his life. This is all about the Gulliver 4 voyages and his satires. But from a critical point of view, we can understand that certain places we can see patriarchy reflected on this text, especially in the second and first voyages, where he called females as really ugly and with unclear skin tone, even though males was there. So this is the critical point of view. So I would like to conclude my attempt to travel through these 4 voyages by saying that this book was really special for me, because at the same time it was interesting and challenging for me to read, because we have to know its social background, its cultural background, and especially the scenarios at their time. It's not only the case of Gulliver Travels. As Francis Bacon once said, to digest a book, we need to know its social background, its cultural background, to understand it completely. So by that, I would like to conclude my travels through Gulliver Travels.